So, hi everybody. Thanks for joining. We're going to give it another 2 or 3 minutes and then we will soon get started with this
Yeah.
session on introduction to business for clinicians. But as you're joining us, just go ahead and type where you're joining us from and what specialty are you? What sort of a clinician are you? Just put that into the comments then. We'd love to get to know everybody. I guess while we're waiting, Junaid, what's been your business insight for the year so far?
Business insight for the year, when the year 2025 so far,
Yes, in the last 1 month.
the value of in-person networking.
Mm,
So LinkedIn is good, but nothing beats face-to-face for developing proper relationships. People getting
that's
to know you,
beautiful.
you getting to know them. So that's been a big takeaway for me from the year. I'm planning to do a lot more of that as well. Got a couple of people
Yeah,
commenting, I
we
think.
got some comments. Linda for GP from London. Hi, Linda. Hi, Aman. Thanks for joining us. Founder of UK Dreamers. Welcome.
Oh, wicked.
We've got Malika, GP from Leeds. That's amazing. Hi, Malika. How are you? Great to have so many people join us. And as more and more people join in, I'll let our comment section lead them to commenting and telling us more about what their specialty is and where they're from. But I think we can sort of get started with today's session. What do you think, Junaid?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Yeah, so let's dive into telling everybody what we're going to cover today. So I think the big problem that we really have is that as clinicians, we get a lot of business ideas and we get a lot of ideas that we really want to pursue and we want to change the world, but we don't even know where to start. So Junaid, I'm going to really focus on bringing out some three mistakes that you've experienced with other clinicians you've worked with, and then we'll move on to one solution to those mistakes. And at the end, we'll give you a bonus, which is the 7 key drivers of success, because the business is a part of your larger career, and there's a couple of different factors that can help you be successful at that. So at this point, if in the comments, once again, just give us what you're looking forward to, and if you have any burning questions already, go ahead and put them in the comments. But we'll do a full Q&A session at the end. And before that, let's take a moment to just acknowledge why we're all here and what's actually happening in 2025, and something that I would never imagine. I talked about this the other day, Junaid, as well, that all really struggling to find jobs. I mean, 1/3 of us are thinking about leaving, and probably the other 2/3 are struggling to get jobs, and it's really, really unfortunate, isn't it?
It's I think it's disgraceful. It's disgraceful the way doctors have been treated over the years, sadly. It's a reality. I think the past decade has been really, really bad for clinicians in the UK, and it doesn't surprise me. Doesn't surprise me a third one to leave. I'm surprised it's not more. And sadly, I hate to say this, but I don't always blame them. I think it's a natural consequence. We're human beings at the end of the day, and we need things to fulfill ourselves, fulfill our own needs. And if it's not happening where we are, we have to look at alternatives.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we are turning to alternatives, this is kind of what we're seeing. I mean, we picked this up from Victor's post the other day, talking about a 7-month contract, expected to attend 100% of all the meetings, but it's voluntary. Where is the equity? Where is the influence? Where is the value of your clinical expertise, right? And in the NHS, we're struggling to get the pay put right. And I think globally, this is an image from India. Lots has happened around the world in terms of the way doctors' value has been perceived. So that's where we are right now, and it's kind of the fact and the weird state in which we're also the people that come up with some of the best ideas and can save healthcare, but are struggling to actually deliver healthcare. But let's move ahead and talk about who we really are. Like, why are people here? What are they going to get out of listening to us? And I'll hand over to you first, Junaid. Tell everybody a bit about yourself.
I'm Junaid. I'm a GP by background. I've been a GP since 2015, almost 10 years. Trained, well, I did my GP training up in Manchester. Then, after a while in the north west of the UK, I moved abroad. So I spent 3 years in Saudi Arabia. Weirdly enough, only a year after being a GP, I set up a GP training program myself in the north of Saudi Arabia from scratch. By the end of the 3 years I was there, we had 32 students across 4 academic years. Yeah, and then I started an MBA whilst I was out there with a focus on entrepreneurship and innovation. Long story short as to why I wasn't able to complete the MBA, I got right to the end on target for good marks and everything else, but there was a research project involved. COVID hit. I'd just come back to the UK, and my son had sort of mental health issues, so I wasn't able to pursue the end of that. But I got from it all the value that I felt I needed without doing the research project. So yeah, so I came back to the UK right at the end of 2019, just before COVID hit, which was an awkward time to come back. But yeah, and then since then I've been working as an out of hours GP primarily, with then during the daytime hours building. So I do doing two things. So one is building this manconfidence.co.uk, which is a business focused on men's mental health and mental well-being. And alongside that, I do a lot of digital health innovation, health technology work. I work with various organizations on their products and developing those or critiquing those or giving them feedback. I hate the word portfolio, but I have a sort of portfolio-ish career. Yeah, and I'm putting into practice essentially the learnings that I've had over the years from my many ADHD started terrible ideas. Well, not terrible, they were brilliant ideas, some of them, but I never saw through because of my uncontrolled ADHD. But yeah, at the moment it's well controlled, so hopefully things are heading in the right direction.
Living life on 2x the speed of everything. And hitting things and failing fast and failing forward, and we're going to come to those mistakes, and we're going to be talking about what other people need to be looking out for. I'll just do a quick introduction about myself. So I'm Shub. I am an emergency medicine registrar, but I'm also an executive coach, and I like to help people build a career that's fulfilling by giving them a personalized roadmap, and helping them make medicine their side hustle, because I really believe that like the one thing that clinicians want to truly want in their life is to make an impact. Often we get stuck in the healthcare system trying to do that, but not actually being able to do it. And I think there's a degree of clarity that I can help bring to everybody. And in 2025, I'm hoping to get at least 6 people be able to call medicine their side hustle by the end of the year. So that's sort of where I am. I have also had a lot of failed ideas, some stolen ideas I might share as well. It was a lot of different people, as well as a lot of education and methodology, that brought me to being able to convert those ideas into something tangible and make them a reality. Well, we've got more people joining us. So Ivan, thanks for joining us. Urgent Care from London. Brilliant.
Big shout out to urgent care, a lot of urgent care work, brilliant.
Yes. And so onto the failed ideas. What's been your experience with this, Junaid?
How long do you have? Okay, I could literally go all night on this. Part of my own experience was around my ADHD being not very well controlled. So jumping from idea to idea is quite common, but even then within medics, it's a common thing because we tend to be driven by almost immediate results. So say, unless you work in public health, generally speaking, you see a patient, you give them something, and within a certain time frame, they're better, or things are improving or changing in the right direction. So we're used to that, relatively speaking, quick satisfaction. We don't always get that in business. So in business, it drags out over months or years usually. That delayed satisfaction, and often we're not patient enough as medics to wait that long for the result. So we end up jumping onto different things, or at least I did. So where do I start? So I had a brilliant idea back in 2012, and that was around. I was thinking, wouldn't it be really good to upload content, like medical content, onto YouTube and educate the masses on it? And I started it for about a month, and I was like, I'm not getting anywhere. And using my from my house, and imagine if I stuck to that. Imagine if I stuck to that. I mean, Ali Abdal, Karen Rajan, eat your heart out, honestly. And literally, yeah, that was back in 2012. The common theme you'll find a lot of things that happen with me is a lack of sticking to them. And
Mm,
there's two sides to that because the one side is not sticking to it because you're thinking nothing's happening, and the other side, you've got that voice in your head saying, "Are you just being delusional? And are you just completely barking up the wrong tree? Is that's the reason? That's the real reason why you're not getting any traction."
mm,
So that's a difficult voice to deal with. But yeah, so that was one experience back in beginning of 2020. It wasn't so much a failed idea as an idea that I'd left behind. I was coaching similar to yourself to an apprenticeship. I was
mm,
coaching medical doctors, medical students around their career ideas, expectations. It was more one to one around sort of very deep diving into what their plans were, expectations, looking at their finances, what they were looking for the future. but I think work picked up after that. The more general practice work picked up, and I sort of left it to the side because I was more interested in, from a personal perspective, I was more interested in sort of health technology, digital health, rather than the one-to-one. Everyone has their own personal interest, and it wasn't something that, even though I was good at it, I didn't see myself building a business around that for myself personally. But yes, that was one that wasn't so failed, but one I didn't stick to. Yeah, but yeah.
I can definitely resonate with that. And I guess if anyone's listening or watching and you've had an idea that you wish you stuck to, go ahead and put the word stick in the comments there. And at the end of the session, we'd love to bring you on and have a bit of a listen. But even if we don't bring you on, just go ahead and put the word stick in there if you resonate with an idea that you wish you stuck to. Yeah, with me, there's always one that kind of nags me in the back of my heart, and it was a really fantastic idea that I had with a friend of mine. And I've always been on YouTube since like 2008 or something. And on YouTube there was a whole era of when 3D printing was going viral, and there was a whole host of people building 3D printed prostheses. So they were sort of movable hand prostheses, but without any sort of mechanics behind it. And the person who designed it made it open source so it could be available to everybody. And at this point, I was in south of India, and we used to work in a hospital which would produce a lot of prostheses for children. And the thing with children is every year you've got to keep changing parts, and they're
Mm,
quite expensive, and people travel from all parts of India. So I said, wouldn't it be amazing if we would have 3D printed prostheses
mm,
here? So we got contacts, we spoke to the right people, we went and like learned more about both 3D printing as well as prosthesis. And then what we did was we went and registered it as a research project. And so then things sort of got stuck from there. We never even thought about it as a business. And a few years later, it took off as India's first and biggest 3D printed prosthesis lab. So that's one that kind of was, I feel like, was stolen away from me.
mm.
So if anyone else has had ideas which have kind of been taken away or taken up by somebody else and you didn't have the right lens on it, or just outright stolen, just put the word stolen in the comments for us. And I'd love to get to know you and might catch you later and hear about your story as well. But yeah, without further ado, let's actually dive into the business side of today's events, Junaid, shall we? So business in itself is quite simple, right? It's making money by selling products such as goods and services. And we can get into the goods and services, but let's get into the selling, which is really the exchange of value. And then there's a whole question around what is value. But before we have a discussion about this, I want to hear who here is already selling something. Who here is already selling something? Put that in the comments. And while we're doing that, Junaid, can you tell us more about what your perspective of business is?
Um, So you're right. Selling products, it is that exchange of value, money for your time, or money for your service, money for your product. But it's very much about fulfilling a need that people want fulfilled. And this is a really important point that we'll come on to in here, because there's needs that we want to fulfill, or we think need fixing, or problems that need resolving, that other people don't see as a problem, or don't see as big as a problem, or don't see as enough of a problem that they want to pay money for. And that's often a a point where a lot of people fail to understand the market, or fail to understand how business works. Because you can have the best ideas in the world, but if no one's willing to put their money towards it, then it's
They're
not
not
really a business.
exchanging value for it.
It's not a business.
Yeah, yeah.
But there's loads of different things to say around it, but that's what I would say for
Yeah,
this.
and at this point, I'm really hoping that people have kind of said that they're all selling something, because I think as clinicians, we are all selling something. We are selling a service. We are a service business by virtue of being a clinician. We go into the hospital and we sell our services to the hospital that contracts us out to help the patients that come to the hospital. So there is an exchange of value that's happening, and I hope that we all can start to see ourselves that way. And I think, as you were alluding to, we're both sort of itching to get into the three mistakes. So let's do it. The three mistakes that we're going to talk about that keep clinicians from being successful in business. So the first one is smarts does not equal success. And I'll be honest, Junaid, when you told me this kind of caught me off guard. So I wanted you to explain what you mean and what's behind this.
And by the way, everybody, at any point, if you have any questions, just please put one in it, because there's no point in me and Shub having a conversation and you're not getting value out of it, or you're stuck in terms of, you're not sure what we're talking about. Mention something or mention a point, and we'll pick that up. Yeah, so the first thing I'd say is that as medics, we're quite bright. We're quite, generally speaking, quite intelligent people. We do well in school, we do well in university, and very, very competitive landscape, and we're clever academically. We get through, jump through many rings of fire to get to where we are now. So there's often an assumption, I think, amongst some clinicians, and I've had a conversation with non-clinicians about this as well, who are successful in business, and where they've said the same thing about clinicians. They've made the assumption that they're good, intelligent academically, therefore they can figure out business themselves, and they can sort of figure it out, because they're clever enough to do so. But smarts don't, as you put, that doesn't mean success. So being an intelligent individual, which every single one of you here is, doesn't necessitate that that person will be good at starting or successfully running a commercial business. And it's hard to take that on board when you've been so successful in life. You say, and all the other things have been, all the other facets of life have been fantastic. But how come I can't do well in this? Because there's so many different aspects to business. There's so many different moving parts to business. And people who've done well in business, just like you've done well in medicine, you're an expert or a consultant or a GP, or you've got through medical school. That's taken a lot of effort, a lot of deep diving, a lot of understanding. The people who do well in business have done similar, but they've followed a different journey. But they're putting a hell of a lot of work and understanding in a different way. And picking up that amount of information straight away is not easy. That takes a long time or it can take a long time to accumulate, to cumulatively pick up the the business knowledge and know-how, the commercial aspects, understanding where profitability comes from, understanding who your ideal customer is, understanding different revenue, and it's an iterative process that takes time.
Yeah, and I don't know what you think about this, Junaid, but I feel like we kind of somewhere forget that the same rules do apply within medicine as well. So even though we were fantastic in med school, we weren't just left to our own accord when we went into hospital and we started practicing. We constantly learned from somebody who'd done it before, somebody who'd already been there and had knowledge. We learned from them. We gained more knowledge. We did more courses, and we learned to do things differently because it wasn't. I mean, we all know that like we got really good at history taking, and then at some point it was no longer about good history. It was about doing something differently. It was about looking at things differently, and I think that perspective shift came through the people we worked with. And when we sort of venture outside, we say, "Oh, we'll just study it. We'll just learn it." And I think that's been an experience. So I really like this one.
And well, the one thing I'd add to that as well is that as clinicians, we tend to, because we're quite intelligent, academically driven, we tend to want to read around the subject a lot. A business requires some reading, but it requires a lot of doing, and a lot of the learning comes through doing rather than through reading. It's not like the CPD we do where you read about, you know, I don't know. Like, you're an A&E doctor by background, aren't you, Shub? So what's it called, pneumothorax. You can read
Yeah,
about all about it in a book
until you do
and
it.
so on until you actually do the procedure. It's just not the same thing. You can read about it till the cows come home, but it's not the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And Malika's put in the comments here saying risk taking is business, but in medicine we are risk averse. I think that's so so true.
It's,
Yeah,
it's, it's a really, really good point.
yeah. So mistake number two, and we were alluding to this earlier, that need is not commitment to buy. And this one really sneaks up on you, doesn't it, Junaid? So tell us more about this one.
Yeah, so there's lots of different examples with this. So thinking that something definitely needs to be fixed, right? And then it's different to someone actually wanting to pay or having a desire to pay for it. And there's loads of different examples with this. I'm going to give abstract examples. Don't hold me verbatim to my example. Just take the principle, perhaps, of what I'm trying to say. So let's say a lot of medics are, GPs, for example, sat in clinic, see patients who are morbidly obese or diabetic, and they know what, this needs fixing. They're diabetic or they're overweight. No, I need to do something about this. Right, I've done my lifestyle course or whatever it is. I need to, and I'm going to create a coaching course around, lifestyle medicine and really give that to my patients. Sounds like, in principle, a wonderful idea. in principle, you're solving a problem with cardiovascular disease, the downward effects of, being obese, cancer, all these different things in a huge market, gigantic amount of people who need this intervention. Who's going to buy it? And you have to really put yourself into the mind of the person who is going to buy it. So if you're going directly to the consumer, commonly known as DTC, when patients have in front of them semaglutide and once a week or whatever it is, or some tablets or bariatric surgery, where do you fit in on that coaching intervention? And you may find that some people, yes, you will, out of that big population of obese people, actually now you can't target everybody. You can only target a very small niche within that who want perhaps what they think is a natural, non-medicated, non-surgical method. And within that, who are they? What do they look like? I'm generalizing here. It could be ladies over the age of 40 who've had a couple of pregnancies, who've a bit of weight to carry, who've got a bit of time on their hands because kids are now in school. It may not be somebody else who's very busy. You see what I mean by there's a problem that needs fixing, but you need to find the people who actually want to pay for that solution that you're providing. It's no good just coming up with a solution and then hoping for the best, because we've all got solutions to problems in medicine. We've all got solutions to common problems in the hospital ward, to pagers, to fax machines, to we could create solutions tomorrow for all these different issues. Who's going to take that off your hands and give you cash that goes into your bank account for all the time and effort you put in? So the common trap that we go into as clinicians, and I think this is common business wide, is trying to fix a problem without knowing who is going to actually pay for that solution. If some people may be like, this is I'm happy just to be obese. I'm happy to, I don't want to this problem to be
Yeah.
fixed.
Yeah.
Or I'm a little bit overweight, but it's fine. I'd rather take metformin than be determined to cut down the amount of food that I want to have. And so it's understanding that the nuances of
Yeah.
what the person wants, or
And
yeah.
my sort of a little 2 cents on this, having been burnt as well, is learning that people saying yes is not commitment enough. Oftentimes, when people say they need something, that's maybe not really what they need or what they think they need. I think what you want to have in terms of your business idea is commitment. And there's three currencies of commitment. They either put time to it, they put energy to it, or they put money to it. And what you want is evidence of that already having had happened. So even though we feel like our business idea needs to be unique, it needs to be new, it needs to be different, but you want to work on something that you've got evidence people are willing to commit to, people are willing to put the time, energy, and money into. And that means working in a field or a niche that people are already committing to.
And remember, your uncle or your aunt saying it's the best thing they've ever seen is not evidence. And as much as you want all your mates or some likes on LinkedIn or someone saying, "Oh, this is amazing, you're doing an amazing," I've heard it so many times. It doesn't bring in any money. You need to have a crystal clear picture of who is it who will truly be willing to buy that product from you. And if you had it there ready for them, with certainty or as near to certainty as possible, they're going to take that off you.
Yeah. And um, yeah, so that and we've got Ams in the chat as well saying hey to all of us, and he's sharing his journey of building Peer Live with everybody, and so much examples in there in terms of all of the roadblocks you can hit and all of the insights you have. If you guys have been enjoying this journey so far, we just want to quickly tell you that we're doing a deeper dive into business for clinicians on the 21st of Feb. So it's going to be a 3 hour half day workshop where we're going to help you build your personal lean canvas and help you find your own exit strategy, or a clinical exit strategy rather than a business exit strategy. So for anybody who's interested, the links in the comments to this event, or you can scan this QR code and that'll take you there as well.
The point number 3. This is one that's really common to clinicians. So it's actually 2 points in one. So overthinking and overplanning, or the opposite, which is underthinking and underplanning. So the traditional way clinicians we've learned is that we read first around a subject, then we sort of do it, and then we incrementally learn over time. But often I've seen, I think in real life with clinicians, for example, is we're scared to take the leap without having some sort of certificate or something to back it up and say you're now okay to do it. Most clinicians will know how to manage, GPs, for example, will know how to manage palliative patients. But someone like, no, I need to do the diploma in palliative, blah, 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 in order to be able to justify it. The same that happens in business. I need to be able to go on X number of courses and read X number of books and know this guru, he'll know more than that guru. And that guru will charge this much and so on. And tend to overthink and overplan at times to the point we're stuck at the before the start line even. We're just stuck, with an idea in our head and we're trying to, mold it into perfection. There's no point in doing that. As soon as you mold it into perfection and send it to the market, the market will tell you straight away this is not what we want, and you have to start again anyway. So it's better to start with something that's not fully perfected, not fully molded, and learn iteratively as you go along. And don't get me wrong, there are good books you can read, there are coaches, there are people who can give you, good advice amongst a whole lot of rubbish out there as well. But there are good people out there who are, who you can learn from with time. But no, nothing beats just getting on with it and starting and realizing, oh, hold on a minute, this isn't working. Oh, actually, the feedback for this is rubbish. You know, oh, that feature looks terrible. The site's loading really slowly now. That page is crashed. You know, I remember. I hope you don't mind me giving this example, Shub, as well.
Go for it.
Just last week, you were sending out a link to one of your an email to a recording of one of your talks, and he said, oh, hey, follow the recording, everybody. And this is on his newsletter. So I clicked the recording, and nothing came up. So I emailed back, Shub, it's not working. I sent you a WhatsApp message. Then he sent me another email saying, oh, whoops, here's the second recording. Clicked on it, didn't work again. Sent it a third one, and sent him another message, and the third time I sent a message saying, oh, whoops, third time's the charm. Here's the link, and it worked. Now, Shub could take that in two ways. He could tell you that, oh my God, it's a disaster. Oh my God, my followers, how amateur do I look? No, he takes it as it is what it is, right? It happened. So what? It's a learning experience, and guess what? For next time round, he'll have to put in interventions to make sure that doesn't happen, and you have to just double check. For example, and that's learning. That's normal. That's normal in business. You're gonna have clangers, you're gonna have embarrassing bloopers and things that don't always work. And I've had millions of those, literally millions. It happens. An example I'd like to give you is going back to YouTube again. If you look at some of the top people on YouTube and scroll all the way back to their first videos in 2012 or 2011 or wherever it is, they're terrible. They still have 3,000, 4,000 views. They have a poor camera. The mic's off. There's no subtitles. But they didn't stop. If they stopped at that point, they would never have got to where they've got to. The art of perfecting took time, and the same with business. The art of perfecting the the market fit takes time. That's the overthinking part. The opposite is also true. You need to have some element of knowledge, some basic knowledge, some basic idea, some framework to work from, such as the lean canvas, for example, something to build your idea from. That's the starting point. That's the starting block. You can't just open a site and hope for the best.
Yeah, and that sort of
Yeah,
answers the question of like, how do you actually do that without losing money, right? Because we're telling people to go ahead and
mm,
fail fast and learn, but how do you do that without losing money? And I think this is probably it's never been cheaper to start a business than now, and I think it's never been cheaper to get business knowledge than now. And as Abhinav was saying in the comments, progress over perfection is something that's so possible at the moment. But I think the fear of failure, the fear of losing money, the fear of our idea being taken away looms over us. And I think as you've alluded to, having something that allows you to create a structure behind it, allows you to follow methodology is kind of what we need. And that takes us on to the solution bit. So we've talked about three mistakes and we want to offer a solution to what this is can overcome those mistakes for you. And that's really based on the fact that even creativity needs structure. So even if you're an artist, you want to schedule some time in your day to paint. Even if you're a writer, you want to create the environment and sit down and have some structure around it that fosters the creativity. It needs to be linked with something else, and so does business idea generation. And that's why we would like to present to you the Lean Canvas. So Junaid, introduce us to this.
so when I've done various accelerators with various innovation hubs, the one thing I tend to come back to at the pre-seed or at the starting stage of any business is the lean canvas, because it's a very straightforward way to some extent of visualizing and providing a solution for your idea, and giving you a real plan at the end of it. And so there's many different facets to it, and part of the deeper dive that we'll go into is to go through this in detail, and go through the pros and cons, and the merits of each aspect, and go through real examples with it as well. The lean canvas is a really easy way of being able to turn your idea into something that you can actually start and get to a good point relatively quickly, or a better point relatively quickly. Bearing in mind, it's still an iterative process. Bearing in mind, nothing is ever guaranteed in business, but it gives you the best chance, in my opinion, to get a good start, and to go from, especially for medics, we don't have much time. We talk about side hustles when we're working very, very hard, very long hours. We don't have time for, 30-page business plans with, we just don't have time for that. We need something that quick that we can work off. And this is something that, I'd strongly recommend if you're able to come to the longer session, because look, we've already talking for 35 minutes. We've already gone 5 minutes over our
Yeah,
planned
we've
time.
gone over, but I think we want to go deeper. We've still got people who've joined us from the beginning, staying
Yeah,
till now, and if they want us to keep going, I think we can keep going. If
yeah.
if you'd like us to keep going, just put that in the comments, please, or feel free to hop off if your time's done, if you need to head off. But we're going to be going to the next step. If you're ready to go to the next.
I can talk to this for hours, and there's so much depth to it, and there's so many caveats to some. I can say to you, yeah, use Lean Canvas, but there's caveats to certain aspects of it. Some you have to know how to use it and apply it. So it's yeah. So I think that aspect is really important.
What do you think, Junaid, is the one thing that we should really share with people today?
Um, I think that's what I said earlier on. You need to know that you've got an actual audience for your problem that
Yeah,
you're trying to solve.
the problem.
I think
Okay. Yeah, we've
the
got a couple
problem is,
of yeses coming in, so they're happy for us to continue. So let's dive into the problem element of the lean canvas.
so this comes back to the point I made a little bit earlier on. To some, there's a bit of an overlap with that. Is what is it the problem that you're actually trying to solve? Is it a problem in the first place, or not? I always give it an example of, there was an episode of Dragon's Den a while back, and this is really really good to see how there are people creating solutions to problems that don't exist. So there was a guy who created a device that could clamp it onto your wheel of your car, and you attach the hose to the side of it, and it cleans the wheel of your car. And then you take it off and you put it onto the other wheel, and it cleans that wheel. The dragon then said, why can't you just use a sponge and some water, or just use a hose? So he created this device and spent how much money it's going to cost to buy it. He's creating a solution to a problem that didn't exist, and he thought it existed. What is truly the issue you're trying to solve? There's a really good doctor on LinkedIn called Zainab Batul, so I recommend you follow if you know her. She's very entrepreneurial in nature. She created a really good product around a natural product for hair loss in men. Now she's got the angle that she's a doctor, and she created it, and she's got it put through testing, and it's quite effective, and so on. There's a problem. The problem is very clear: hair loss in men. Yeah, and we don't like losing our hair. It makes us feel old, and it makes us feel less attractive and everything else. Shub's okay, but I'm struggling a little bit. But yeah, so it's that's a real problem. Now there are other people who do that. That's when you start to look at the other parts. How do you stand out? Who are you people? Who's the exact profile of person you're going to, and so on. But first you need to find a truly a problem that actually exists, that people want a solution for. And yeah, so what is your problem when you're thinking about businesses? And the other thing I say with problem is, find a problem close to you, close to things that you're good at. I had an interesting conversation with somebody who's a businessman who the other day, and he put something into perspective for me. He said that, Junaid, you're an experienced GP, you're a doctor, you're a specialist. You should work on things that are close to you. And I was like, as clinicians, we don't really see ourselves as specialists amongst ourselves. We're like, oh, we're all doctors, we're not really that. But to the rest of the population, we're quite specialized. We're actually quite uniquely positioned. We're actually quite intelligent. But amongst ourselves, we play ourselves down. No, I'm not really as that important. Shub's a doctor. I'm a doctor. Everybody else is a doctor. We're all doctors, right? What we do stand out amongst the population. So take that to your advantage. If there's something that a problem that you see within, whether it's your workplace, whether it's personal issues that you've had. One of the reasons I started Man Confidence, which is the men's mental health platform, is because of my own mental health experiences, my own success within using therapy and psychiatry and ADHD and the various things that come from my own personal perspective. So I know that area really, really well. And that's the area that I want to work on. It aligns with what I like, but also there is a demand for it. And there's an emerging demand because 10 years ago, there wasn't. 10 years ago, men wouldn't talk about the same thing. Now men are increasingly talking about it, so they're increasingly accessing the same thing. So that I know there is, and there's going to be an increasing demand for it. So that's the problem I'm trying to solve. And even within that, I'm iteratively changing things. I tried to create CBT modules online. No one was using them. No, and so I had to change because I thought people that was the solution people wanted. They didn't. So find the
There's
problem and change.
and there's many ways in which you can try and find out what the problem is. What's one of your favorite ways?
Finding out what the problem. I think for me, it has to be a problem that's close to you or close to your heart. Because even though I'm one individual, so not everyone, not the entire world is gonna think like me necessarily. But if you will know a problem if you've lived it and seen it around you regularly,
Yeah,
then you'll know. Then you can think about it. You can write on paper, draw a diagram, whatever you want to do, a brain tree, and or whatever it is you want to do to find solutions for it. But the problems are all around you; they're everywhere. You don't need to go into somebody else's territory in finance, financial technology, and whatever it is. You can find a million and one problems within healthcare or just within your own life that you can find solutions for that are scalable that people will want to pay money for. They are there, they are around you,
yeah.
and jot them down and take a scientific approach to jot them down, think about what solutions you could have to them, dismiss the ones that are rubbish, throw them in the bin, and you may come up with a eureka moment at some point. You think, wow, this is really cool. This might actually work.
Yeah. And what I keep trying to remember is that the problem is not going to pay for your product. The people are. And they're the ones having the problem. And it's really funny how we get into the nitty-gritties, into the science and the data, but at the end of the day, it all comes back to people. It's going to be about people. It's going to be about listening to looking at yourself as a person, looking at your own story, but then also finding people like you, finding people like the ones that you want to serve and asking them what problem do you have, and I think the magic number sort of in terms of data is at least 15 people. You want to be speaking to at least 15 people, understanding what sort of problems they have, looking at the trends within that. If you can get more, that's even better, but at least 15 people before you judge whether something's worth pursuing or not. And this is coming from my quality improvement experience, where we plot data, where we create process charts and process maps and look at the data in the past and say, okay, do we have at least 15 data points to say if things are uptrending or downtrending, rather than saying they're red or green on a red, amber, green map.
Reinforcing 15 people who are not your friends or your immediate family. But they're always going like, yeah, this is the best idea in the world. You're amazing. We love you. You have to look at people who may give you critical feedback and say, actually, no, I don't like this. No, you know what? I don't want to pay money for this, or I'd prefer it in this way. And there's a fine line also between um, and this is a slightly tangential point, a fine line between asking your ideal customer for what whether they like your product versus verbatim accepting all their feedback. Because what you can't do is tell them, what you can't do is say to them, "Will you definitely buy my product?" Because no one can guarantee you that. But if you know you're solving their problem and you put yourself in their shoes and you build their persona, you pick up their persona, and you understand the type of person they are and what their buying habits are and so on, you can increase your probability of aligning your solution with their needs, and then they're more likely to buy. I'm not sure whether I worded that particularly well or anyone understood what I said, but essentially they won't always give you the right answer or the right answer that you're looking for. You need to interpret what they say. And this came to an earlier point that I said about delusion, because at times we want to hear certain answers. As humans, we don't want to hear criticism. We want to hear, this is wonderful. I will buy it. I'll pay money for it. And as humans, when imagine you're giving feedback, you don't want to give bad feedback. If someone's there in front of you, he's a really nice guy, really nice. So a lady in front of you, you don't want to say, "Oh, this is a terrible product. This is rubbish. I don't want to use this." So take any and every feedback as honestly as possible, and put your own ego to the side. Be prepared to be a little bit hurt, but also that's part of the learning process.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got some more people wanting to join us from Instagram, so I'm just trying to get the link across to them and say we're still going. So this after this phase is where the fun bit comes, and this is what we all kind of really enjoy doing. And we don't spend enough time on the problem, and we jump straight into some business ideas. We get really excited about how they are, and I really like this chart that you shared with me earlier, Junaid. A couple of quick business ideas for clinicians.
Yeah, so these are really quick ideas. Now, you don't have to run with any of them, but these are just a really, really quick set of ideas. So I'll run through them very, very quickly. So you've got on the top left, so healthcare, so a real physical, in-person, traditional healthcare, bricks and mortar type of business. You've got to open up a shop front essentially and get your CQC registration, start treating people and getting people to treat people in your center. Then if you go down, you've got the online version of that, which is sort of what I'm doing with Man Confidence, an online men's mental health platform. Or you can incorporate tech into that as well. And there's different facets to it. So the guys from Peer have healthcare, but or science and biotech and so on, with a view to an online sort of social media platform essentially. You can incorporate tech. You can create technology if you're really ambitious. Bear in mind that these are not solopreneur ideas. These are things that take teams. Technology in particular takes many people to get together to create it and a deep understanding of regulation and so on. You can go further down into consulting, and you are, some of you guys are GPs here. You've got industry experience that's valued by many different organizations, different people who used to find who it is that will value your your input. I remember 3 or 4 years ago, I was on LinkedIn and I was talking about digital health and health technology. I got a lot of work out of that. I wasn't, and including consultancy work, and what I was doing on LinkedIn was basically saying I don't like all the terrible digital health and technology solutions that are out there. I think they're all rubbish, and and not out of spite, but because I genuinely felt that some of the solutions were terrible, and but yet they were getting £1 million, £2 million, £3 million in funding. I was like, how on earth did they get that? And other people resonated with that and said, well, yeah, they are getting it. It's weird. Maybe Junaid onto something here. So you can consult with businesses or with individuals. You can try an innovative type of business. So like a new tangential way of doing things. Personal brand, that's a big one. Shubham know a lot about this as well. In terms of you become known about certain things. So like, so 3 or 4 years ago, I was known as a digital health guy. I'm probably now more known as a mental health guy than anything else, and that's because I pump out a lot of content and information around and that till people associate me with that. And you can do that.
Yeah,
Don't be shy.
I'd probably highly suggest Daniel Priestley's book called Key Person of Influence here. I think that's a must read for anybody who's interested in this. And we've also got a comment from Linda suggesting that it's also a good idea to try and sell your product before you've made it, and I think that's a fantastic idea.
Yeah, it's a really, really good point. I think you hit the nail on the head
Yeah,
with that one. Absolutely. Going on to the next one, easy product or a simple product that or a product that you think you want to sell. There's people making money out of selling t-shirts online, literally. I'm not saying go sell t-shirts, but there's people selling, very simple products. It doesn't have to be anything complicated, anything that changes, revolutionizes things. That can make you money. So, I know clinicians who've created fashion brands. I know clinicians who've created, health and skin, beauty, brands and so on. Whichever one you think, just work through the solution and work through the problem and the solution,
yeah.
and and then create a proper plan out of it.
So yeah, controversial take, Junaid. I think this is the bit that doctors are really good at, and I think this is what we think we're really good at. We know we're really good at, and everybody else tells us we're really good at, and so we think we're really good at business. But I think we're not good enough at figuring out what the problem is. Despite that being our day job, we struggle to figure out what the problem is outside of the clinical setting.
Because in the clinical setting, we're in charge. We are the solution to the problem.
Yes.
Um, Whereas in reality, in the real world, in the world outside of the hospital, outside of primary care or where we're working, but we're not king.
Mm.
We're not the ones, we don't have the formulary for all the solutions
Yeah.
and all the medications.
So someone's already done the hunting of what the problem could be, and then we just sort of follow an algorithm and say, this is what the problem is, so here's the solution.
Solution,
Whereas
exactly.
outside, you've actually got to start from scratch and say, what is the problem and what could all the problems be?
There's a lot of social science and psychology involved in this, and where we've done generally historically as clinicians is hard science, facts, biology, chemistry, and all that sort of stuff, and biochemistry and pharmacology and all those sorts of things. Whereas a lot of the stuff in marketing and in business is very much woolly. It's very what we think is not really sort of stuff you can grab with your hands.
Yeah.
It's how you influence people, how you speak to them, how you relay your business to them. Even down to the choice of color, the choice of tone of language, all that makes a difference.
And I think that kind of brings us to what the bonuses that we want to share with you all. And as Junaid was sort of alluding to, that the product and the idea is part of the business. There's so much more to being successful. And I think there's really 7 key drivers for success. And if you scan this QR code, it'll take you to my quiz that will tell you how you're doing against each of these 7 key drivers so you know where to improve or where to start from. And I'll just quickly walk you through what they are really. So the first bit is niche clarity, and that's kind of, if you think about it in the business terms, that's all about what is the problem you're solving, who are you solving it for, how are you solving it amongst all of those different sort of business ideas, which one is the one that's right for you, both in terms of being successful at, but also giving you the life that you're looking for. Because we're not doing this for bread and butter. I mean, I think unfortunately we are now at a place where we are doing this for bread and butter, but we have secure jobs at the moment, and if we're going to do this, then we want it to work for our lifestyle more than just money, right? And the impact at the end of it. Then there's things around financial consideration. So how do you actually price the product or service that you're coming up with? How do you understand the market in a way that you can follow trends and narratives that are already existing? Value creation is the method in which you create values. So this is interesting. I love cooking and I watched a lot of cooking videos. So I was watching this chef, and I think that was a beautiful example for me because when you look at a chef and you ask the question, where does the value lie? Is the value in the food that he makes, or is the value in who the person is? And by who the person is, I mean a cross section of their experience, the skills, the knowledge, and everything that they hold in their mind, right? So this chef could go to a hotel or a restaurant and say, I will work for you, and give his time in return for money, right? Or the chef could go off and open his own restaurant and work with other chefs because he has the knowledge and the skills to be able to do that. Or the chef could go and start a YouTube channel and cook. So he's taking the same experience, the same skill set, and onto different platforms and creating value in different ways. And it's about understanding what that means for you and which one of those values is in alignment with what you want and the business that you want to run. And systems and processes is kind of what we were talking about, using the lean canvas, using data to test your decisions before you make them. And a big chunk behind all of this is the mindset, shifting from a renter mindset to an owner mindset. We keep saying that you shouldn't live in your own house and pay rent when you could be owning it and just get a mortgage, and at the end you'll have value. But we don't look at our careers in that way. We do so much work for other people. We're renting, and we're just getting paid rent. But what you really want is a piece of the pie. What you want is some equity and some skin in the game, something that really gives you worth for the value that you create, even after you've created it. I think all doctors should probably get a bit of equity in hospitals that we go to because they wouldn't function without us really. And networking and collaboration, and I think this takes me back to the point that it's all about people. There's got to be people that help you through each step of the journey, and you got to put it all together in a way that works strategically, so you're not going back and forth, and you got to take the right steps and the right action. So my quiz kind of through a couple of different questions, and gives you a score against each of these and tells you where you're good at, where you need to work a bit harder. And for anybody who's sort of listening to the recording, it'll be in the description in the comments. So go ahead and use that. And yeah, with that, I think we'd like to
I think
once again. Yeah, go ahead, Junaid.
so I was gonna say so my little take on that, the mindset one is really, really important for clinicians because we're often in a follower mindset. Whereas all of you who are listening with this live or through a recording, you have a lot more value to add or to give, sorry, rather than you realize. I noticed on LinkedIn, for example, there's many clinicians on there just don't say anything. They're very silent. Their opinions are really, really important. And in fact, people value your opinion, who you are. Get yourself out there, change that mindset from one that just accumulates information to one that actually gives something out, has an output, whether it's a physical product, whether it's your opinion, whatever it is, change that because your opinion is valuable. Whether you've just become a doctor or a GP, your life experiences, your truth as you see it is really important for you to get out there, and people value that.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're listening to this and thinking, I've got so many great ideas, things that haven't worked in the past. I'm hesitant to try it again. I'm going to take you back to what we said about commitment. If this is something that you really want to make happen, ask yourself, are you really committing to it? It's one thing to say, I want it, but it's a different thing to say that you're committing to it. And if you're committing to it, you better be putting time and energy and money into your dreams to make them come to reality, because without that, it's not going to happen, unfortunately. Yeah, so thank you so much for joining us today. And with that, I think Junaid and I would like to personally invite each and every one of you to the event on 21st of Feb, where we're going to be doing a deeper dive into each of the elements of the lean canvas, helping you work through your ideas, and then working against those 7 key drivers to create essentially an exit strategy for you to work through various domains and make sure that you're going to be successful if you take this journey. So if you're serious about business as a clinician, then do join us on the 21st of Feb.
Please, I think it's like this is meant to be half an hour. It's been an hour and 10 minutes, and I could go all night. Literally, there's so much value to and information to give. I've had a long and convoluted journey from a career and from business and commercial and innovation perspective. But there's a lot of learning from that process that I'd love to share, and so that you don't make the same mistakes,
Yeah,
so that the journey is easier for you. Yeah,
yeah.
that's mainly that.
You're very welcome, everybody. And if you've got any questions, we'll take them now. And while you're sort of thinking about your questions and putting them into the comments section, you're very welcome, Faria. We'll, as you come up with your questions and put them in the comments, we'll talk through what kind of happens, what's the change that happens once you start using a methodology like Lean Canvas. And I personally had this moment when I was doing my quality improvement role because I was just sick and tired of coming up with fantastic ideas and nobody paying any heed to them. And I'd done a lot of leadership work and I'd looked at Kotter's 8 steps and creating a burning platform and getting the move through things. And that was all well and good, but I just couldn't get people to get my ideas to stick really. And it was really when I dove deep into quality improvement methodology, which very similar to Lean Canvas actually gave me the tools and structure that I needed to work through a particular problem, identify where the problem lay and what were all of the factors contributing it, and what are all of the levers that I could pull to solve it. And then combining that with the leadership of being able to influence people, being able to talk about your passion in a way that you get people on board, that changed everything for me. What was your experience like, Junaid?
I agree. I think the structure is something you can always come back to. So whether it's a lean canvas or otherwise, these are things where they evolve over time. The answers to each part of it will evolve over time. One of the things I did when I was working with some healthcare businesses was a very simple tool called SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. It's really simple. Some businesses will do that quarterly or every 6 months to evaluate strategically where they are, where the lie of the land is. There's innovation maps where you can map your innovation to physically on across 4 quadrants to where it is, how radical it is compared to others, and there's different tools, but they and different structures, different methodologies, but they all have an intrinsic value in giving you support to when you make your decisions. And even after all that, nothing's guaranteed, but it gives you a far better chance when you're on an even keel and you know you hold on a minute, this bit here didn't quite work. I can rub that out now and I can change it to something else, see if that will work. and you've gone through it in a structured in a clear manner, that makes all the world of difference. Yeah, it really does.
Yeah.
It's very much an incremental learning process, but it helps so much to have these things in place to go back to. And often you'll find in business, your initial idea compared to where you are at the end, 2 or 3 years later, is almost unrecognizable. Where you started is almost unrecognizable from where you were at the beginning, and that's the normal part of the evolution in business.
Yeah, and I think the other evolution is really that, like, as clinicians, you kind of have to be humbled in the beginning of your journey. But when you start getting used to these tools and methodologies, I think it really transforms into something that's exciting and something that grows. Is I mean, I say this all the time. I feel like at the end of the day, nobody's dying, and
Mm.
that's the unfortunate truth. But it also means that you get to create things, and it's just really, really exciting the moment that you kind of get going and these methodologies work and you know where the next step is. Sometimes I feel like my days aren't long enough for me to do all of the things I want to do, and in a very exciting way.
Yeah, good point, Shabazz. I think unless you're creating a healthcare business in particular where people could get hurt if you make mistakes, generally speaking, no one's going to die if you make a mistake in setting up your business. But nothing drastic is going to go
Yeah,
wrong. Just don't mortgage your house at the beginning.
yeah,
But yeah, be careful with how you spend your money and so on. Yeah, no one's going to get hurt. Just give it a go. Follow a good method and stick to that. Seek advice. Look around. Give it time.
yeah.
Learn as you go. It's an ongoing learning process.
Before we wrap up, we do have a question, Junaid. I think it'd be good for you. Linda's asking if there's any experience in getting B2B leads, what works well.
Linda, that's a really good question. I was talking to you about that just before I came on. It, it depends on the type of business that you're doing. I'm working on B2B leads myself. I never was initially a fan of cold emailing, but it is cold emailing is an option with businesses, but it doesn't have to be as cold as, just buying a list of the internet and emailing them. We can leverage AI tools to find the right email addresses within larger organizations. This AI tool, there's one called getemail.io, I think it is, that I've used. So I look for a particular position within an organization where I think they may buy what I'm selling, and then I type that position into, or I look for the name of the person, and then I put the name of the person into that tool, and it gives me their email address on most occasions, not on all occasions, but on most occasions. So you're able to narrow down the right person to email to, because there's no point emailing to the janitor in a company where you're not, unless you're selling cleaning products. You need to sell it, you get to the right person who understands why, what you're doing, and how you could add value to that particular business. So yeah, B2B side, and email message me on LinkedIn afterwards, Linda, as well, because there's someone I could introduce you to as well that might be able to help with B2B leads as well. But my experience, cold email is what I'm doing. Networking is another one that I'm working on. I haven't figured out the exact answer to that particular question yet, because that's still a work in motion for me. Direct to consumer, I'm doing better. The B2B side I'm working on as well. So it's very much a work in progress for me at the moment. But there is someone who I know who'd be able to help.
Yeah, and if I'm pulling something from the back of my coach training, my executive coach training is probably along the lines of realizing that even B2B at the end of the day is person to person and connecting on that human level, understanding what is going on the other side, having that degree of empathy to figure out what's the structure, what's the situation, and where do you fit in as the solution to that problem and being able to communicate it to the right person. Srinidhi is asking if there's a recording. You joined quite late. Yes, of course, there's going to be a recording. So the one on LinkedIn will stay on LinkedIn, but this will also go on as a podcast episode on the Medic Side Hustles podcast, which is on Spotify and YouTube. So if you just head over to either my page or my website, you can find links to both of them. Yeah, so fantastic questions. Anyone else got a question? We still have 9 people listening, Junaid. That's absolutely amazing. I'm really excited. I hope you guys enjoyed the session today. And like we said, if there's more appetite for learning how to get started, then do join us on the 21st of Feb. But even otherwise, feel free to drop us a message. I'm sure both of Junaid, you are probably as open as I am to receiving any questions on LinkedIn. That's probably the best place to reach us. Uh, and if there's anything else that comes to mind, um, put that in the comments below, and we're going to stick around for about another 5 minutes or so, and then we'll sign off. Thanks for having us.
That B2B question, yeah, that got me thinking. Drop me a message. I'll definitely there's a couple of contacts who might be able to help you. But it's a difficult one. If everyone knew the answer to B2B, then everyone would be a multimillionaire. A lot of it's a work of again incremental learning, trying and failing, trying again. Interestingly enough, when I had a conversation with somebody about B2B cold emails, I tried implemented a methodology, and within a week, I got uh, two meetings with two professional football clubs for Man Confidence, local ones in Birmingham. So yeah, so and they're very big sort of Premier League teams for Man Confidence. So yeah, so there is a way, but yeah, it's all incremental and takes time.
And so just to sort of wrap up on the note that business is at the end of it simple when you compare it to medicine maybe, but it's different. It's very different. C.S. Lewis said we all want progress, but if you're on the wrong road, progress means doing an about turn and walking back to the right road. In that case, the man who turns back soonest is the most progressive. Fail fast, fail forward, progression over perfection. Use a methodology to know if you're on the right road or not. And hopefully that's inspired some of you. All right.
Like, honestly, I hope it was useful.
Yeah. Yeah.
The way I look at these sort of things, there's no point in me talking unless it's useful um,
Absolutely.
for you. Me and Shuk have a chat anytime.
Yeah, we've had a couple of comments saying thanks for your insights, great tips, and a couple of thanks. So it's it's been lovely.
Connect us to us on LinkedIn as well
Yeah,
if you like. Yeah, and yep,
lovely. See you all next time.
thanks, Shuk.